Welcome back to Realms Revealed, the channel where we explore the lore and history of Middle-earth and beyond. In today's video, we'll answer a fascinating question from Tolkien's Legendarium. What if Gandalf never returned to Middle-earth? Gandalf, or Olorin as he was known in Valinor, is one of the most iconic and powerful characters in Tolkien's works. As a Maya, he was sent by the Valar to aid the free peoples of Middle-earth in their struggle against Sauron. Yet, he was not a typical hero. He worked through wisdom, persuasion and subtlety, rather than by force. He guided kings, rallied armies, and played a pivotal role in the defeat of Sauron. But what if things had been different? What if Gandalf never returned to Middle-earth to guide its people in their hour of need? Before we dive into this what-if scenario, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an exciting video like this one. Now let's delve into the question, what if Gandalf never returned to Middle-earth? Gandalf's absence in the Shire. Without Gandalf's return to Middle-earth, the entire course of events that led to the War of the Ring would have shifted dramatically. His absence from the Shire in particular would have had dire consequences. It was Gandalf who first discovered the true nature of the One Ring when he visited Bilbo Baggins and took the time to investigate the mysterious object that Bilbo had found during his travels. Without Gandalf, the ring might have remained a simple trinket in the hands of a hobbit, one that was largely ignored by the rest of the world. But the absence of Gandalf's wise counsel meant that the ring's malevolent power would have remained unchecked for much longer. Without his intervention, Bilbo might have held onto the ring for an even greater stretch of time, its dark influence growing stronger. The power of the ring is subtle and corruptive, and while Bilbo was able to resist it for many years, the longer he possessed it, the more dangerous the potential for corruption became. In the absence of Gandalf's wisdom and guidance, it's possible that Bilbo's eventual relinquishment of the ring to Frodo would never have happened. Or if it did, it might have been too late to keep the ring from fully corrupting the Hobbit. Moreover, Frodo would have remained a relatively unknown figure in the Shire, untouched by the great events that unfolded in the wider world. Gandalf's insistence that Frodo carry the ring was not merely out of chance. It was based on the wizard's understanding that hobbits were uniquely suited to bear the ring due to their lack of ambition and their humble, unassuming nature. Without Gandalf's wisdom to see this, Frodo might have never even left the Shire, and the power of the ring would have gone unnoticed for even longer. It is highly likely that Gollum, who had once possessed the ring, would have continued to search for it in vain, and without Gandalf to uncover the truth, Frodo would have remained blissfully unaware of the danger that lurked in the form of the ring. Had Frodo never left the Shire, the political situation in Middle-earth would have escalated. Sauron, from his dark realm in Mordor, would continue to grow in strength, his influence spreading slowly but surely, as no one outside of the Shire knew the true danger of the ring. In such a scenario, Gandalf's involvement would have been necessary to bring attention to Sauron's dark plans, but without the initial spark of his return to the Shire, the other forces of Middle-earth might not have been prepared to fight. The absence of the Council of Elrond. Without Gandalf to provide insight and direction, the formation of the Council of Elrond in Rivendell would have never occurred. The Council's role was crucial in forming the alliance between the various peoples of Middle-earth and deciding how to deal with the One Ring. The wisdom and foresight Gandalf provided helped to bring together the fragmented forces of Gondor, Rohan, the elves, and even the dwarves. In the absence of Gandalf, Elrond and Gimli may never have arrived at the same conclusion, and the assembly itself might have collapsed in confusion and disagreement. The various factions of Middle-earth were often deeply mistrustful of one another. This was especially true of the elves and dwarves, whose historical animosity might have prevented any cooperation without Gandalf's mediating presence. Aragorn, as the heir of Isildur and rightful king of Gondor, would have been left in a difficult position without Gandalf's support. Gandalf's role in guiding Aragorn towards embracing his destiny was a pivotal one. His leadership and mentorship helped Aragorn grow into a figure of authority and strength, capable of leading his people. Without Gandalf, Aragorn may have struggled to fully recognize his role in the greater fight against Sauron, leaving him uncertain about claiming the throne of Gondor. The forces of Gondor, divided and directionless, would have been unable to unite behind their rightful king, and Denethor, Gondor's steward, would have ruled without the balance Gandalf provided. Denethor, already inclined toward despair, could have been pushed further into madness, possibly sealing the fate of Gondor even before Sauron's armies arrived. The Council of Elrond was where the fate of the ring was ultimately sealed. But without Gandalf's voice to guide the decision-making process, the council might have fractured under the weight of differing agendas. Boromir, whose own desire to use the ring for Gondor's defense led to his tragic downfall, would have been left unchecked in his ambitions. Without Gandalf to challenge his notion of using the ring as a weapon, Boromir might have taken the ring by force, potentially leading to a civil war within the Fellowship itself. This internal strife would have significantly delayed or even destroyed the Fellowship's ability to act. In the absence of Gandalf, the formation of the Fellowship of the Ring would have lacked the clarity and leadership needed to succeed. Frodo, with no wise guide, might have struggled to make sense of the conflicting emotions and responsibilities weighing on him. Even if he had still undertaken the mission to destroy the ring, he would have been at a greater disadvantage, both mentally and physically. The absence of Gandalf would also mean that Gandalf's voice of reason, which was instrumental in guiding the group through moments of doubt, would be sorely missed. The Fellowship would have found itself adrift, unsure of its next move. As a result, the mission to destroy the ring would have faced insurmountable obstacles, with no clear direction to follow. The loss of a leader in Moria. The loss of Gandalf in Moria was one of the greatest turning points in the War of the Ring. Gandalf's fall into the abyss while battling the Balrog was a pivotal moment that tested the resolve of the Fellowship. His absence from this point forward had a profound impact on how the group would proceed. The Fellowship would have been severely weakened without Gandalf's guidance during the treacherous journey through the mines of Moria. Gandalf, who was not only a powerful wizard, but a figure of wisdom and moral authority, was the central pillar holding the Fellowship together. Without him, the group would have lost a crucial leader at the time of their greatest challenge. Aragorn, though skilled in battle and leadership, would have found himself overwhelmed by the responsibility of leading the Fellowship through Moria without Gandalf's assistance. While Aragorn was capable of taking charge in battle, Gandalf provided something that Aragorn lacked at the time: a deep understanding of the greater forces at play and a strategic mind that saw beyond immediate concerns. Gandalf's knowledge of Middle-earth's ancient history and the intricacies of the ring made him invaluable in moments of crisis. Without him, Aragorn would have been forced to navigate the perilous paths of Moria, the treacherous mountain passes, and the growing darkness without the counsel he so desperately needed. The death of Gandalf would also have affected the morale of the Fellowship. His fall would have been seen as a terrible omen, and the group would have struggled to maintain the same level of unity and resolve. Frodo, already burdened with the weight of the ring, would have been left without the stabilizing force that Gandalf represented. While Sam remained loyal and determined, the loss of Gandalf's wisdom and support would have shaken the Fellowship's spirit to its core. With Gandalf gone, the Fellowship would have found it more difficult to navigate through the challenges ahead. The loss of leadership meant that no one could provide the overarching strategy necessary to defeat Sauron. Even though Aragorn was capable in his own right, he was still young, inexperienced, and without the guidance Gandalf provided, he would have struggled to unite the various factions of Middle-earth. The group's already fragile unity would have likely fractured further, with each member pulling in different directions according to their own priorities and agendas. Without Gandalf, Frodo and Sam would have been left to bear the burden of the ring alone, with no guiding force to steer them through their perilous journey. The ring's corrupting influence would have weighed heavier on them, and without Gandalf's wisdom to help them resist the ring's temptation, their mission would have become even more difficult. Their resolve would have been tested time and again, and the possibility of their failure would have loomed much larger. Had Gandalf not been there to lead them through Moria, the Fellowship would have fractured irreparably. The loss of such a central figure would have spelled disaster for the group, and the chances of success in the mission to destroy the ring would have been significantly diminished. The dark forces of Sauron would have found their opportunity to strike, and the shadow over Middle-earth would have grown even stronger. The fall of Sauron and the Dark Lord's triumph. Without Gandalf, the story of Sauron's defeat would play out very differently. Gandalf's wisdom, foresight, and personal involvement in pivotal moments were crucial to the ultimate downfall of the Dark Lord. He was the driving force behind the strategy that brought the free peoples of Middle-earth together and kept them united in the fight against Sauron. Without him, the diverse factions of Middle-earth, including elves, men, dwarves, and even hobbits, might never have joined forces in such a coordinated effort. The absence of Gandalf would leave a massive leadership vacuum, particularly at critical moments. Without his counsel, Aragorn would likely have faltered in his path to becoming the king of Gondor. While Aragorn was undoubtedly capable, it was Gandalf who helped him embrace his true destiny and took actions that led to his acceptance of the throne. If Aragorn were to remain hesitant or uncertain, Gondor's defenses would have been weakened. A divided Gondor would have struggled even more under siege, leaving Sauron's armies a clear path to victory. The Pelennor Fields, which saw the heroic defense of Minas Tirith, might have been lost, and the fall of Gondor would have become inevitable. Without the clear leadership of Gandalf in the city, Denethor, the steward of Gondor, would have been left unchecked in his descent into madness. In the absence of Gandalf's wise counsel, Denethor would have likely succumbed to his despair earlier, possibly throwing Gondor into chaos just when it needed stability the most. His madness had already begun to take root before Gandalf's intervention, but without the wizard's presence to bring some clarity and rally the defenders, Gondor would have lacked the leadership to maintain its strength. Without Gandalf's foresight, Frodo's mission to destroy the One Ring would have been abandoned altogether. Gandalf was the one who recognized the significance of the ring and the unique strength of Frodo, a simple hobbit, to bear it. Without his guidance, Frodo might never have left the Shire at all. Even if he had, without Gandalf's help in guiding him through perilous moments, Frodo would have struggled to make it to Mount Doom, where the ring had to be destroyed. Without the wizard's strategic planning and his later rescue of Frodo at critical points, the ring would likely have found its way back to Sauron, completing the Dark Lord's reign of terror. As Sauron's forces grew ever more powerful, it is clear that Gandalf's absence would not only lead to a fractured resistance, but also to the corruption and eventual collapse of the mission to destroy the One Ring. The chaos and distrust among the Free Peoples would have allowed Sauron to slowly but surely gain control over all of Middle-earth. The power of the ring would have been fully realized, and Sauron would have established an unshakable dominance over the land, with no one left to challenge him. The shattered Fellowship. The absence of Gandalf would have had profound effects on the Fellowship itself. Without Gandalf's presence, the group would have lacked a central figure capable of holding them together during their darkest times. When Gandalf fell in Moria, his absence was a terrible blow, but Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and the others were still able to press on, relying on each other's strengths. But what if Gandalf had never been there at all? Frodo, who bore the One Ring, would have been especially vulnerable without Gandalf's steady guidance. The ring's power to corrupt was a constant threat, and without Gandalf's wisdom to counteract that, Frodo might have been more susceptible to the ring's whispers. The burden of the ring would have been heavier on him, and it's possible that, without Gandalf's support, Frodo would have faltered before even leaving Rivendell. Even if he did make it out of the Shire, he would have lacked the mental fortitude to resist the temptation of the ring in the absence of Gandalf's teachings. Without Gandalf's influence, the ring's corrupting power would likely have spread through the Fellowship, breaking bonds of loyalty and trust among the members. Frodo's ability to trust his companions and push forward on the mission would have diminished. In essence, the quest to destroy the One Ring would have unraveled far sooner without the wisdom and unifying influence Gandalf provided. And once the Fellowship fractured, it would have been impossible to defeat Sauron without a unified front. The War of the Ring, without a strategist. The War of the Ring was not won by mere force of arms, it was a war of strategy, alliances, and intelligence. Gandalf was an unparalleled strategist, capable of seeing the broader picture and guiding the Free Peoples in the right direction. Without him, the war would have lacked its most vital strategist, and the forces of Sauron would have easily overrun Middle-earth. Gandalf's tactical brilliance was evident from the very beginning. When the Battle of Helm's Deep was on the line, Gandalf knew exactly how to turn the tide of battle, rallying the Rohirrim to ride to Rohan's aid. His foresight allowed him to bring forces to the battlefield at just the right moment, turning the tide against Saruman's Uruk-hai. Without him, Rohan's forces would have been wiped out, and Saruman would have gained a foothold in the Westfold that would have allowed him to eventually strike Gondor. The alliance between Rohan and Gondor would have never been forged, leaving Sauron's forces with fewer enemies to face. In Gondor, Gandalf was instrumental in the defense of Minas Tirith, where his ability to marshal the defenses, organize a coherent resistance, and provide inspiration to the defenders was crucial. Without him, the city's forces would have lacked direction, and without proper leadership, they would have been unable to repel Sauron's forces. Denethor's madness would have likely been more pervasive without Gandalf's calming influence, and Gondor would have been doomed. Meanwhile, Gandalf also had a hand in organizing the final assault on Mount Doom. He knew that a full military confrontation was not the key to victory. The One Ring had to be destroyed, and the armies of Sauron had to be distracted long enough to allow Frodo to complete his mission. Gandalf's plan to launch a diversionary attack on the Black Gate was essential to the success of the mission. Without Gandalf's brilliant understanding of strategy and diversion, Sauron's focus would have remained fixed on Frodo, and he might have succeeded in stopping him before the ring could be destroyed. Without Gandalf, the strategy to defeat Sauron would have lacked coordination, and the alliances between Gondor, Rohan, and the Elves might not have been solidified. The strategy of distraction and misdirection was a cornerstone of the final victory. Without it, the forces of Sauron would have remained focused and organized, able to crush any resistance. Sauron would have likely triumphed and reshaped Middle-earth according to his dark will. In conclusion, Gandalf's presence in Middle-earth was pivotal to the success of the quest to destroy the One Ring and to the survival of the Free Peoples. Without his wisdom, leadership, and unwavering determination, the events that unfolded in The Lord of the Rings would have taken a far darker turn. His absence would have weakened the Fellowship, leaving the forces of Sauron with a much greater chance of victory. Thank you for reading and exploring this alternate history with me. I hope you enjoyed this look at how Middle-earth might have changed without Gandalf's guiding hand. Stay tuned for more insights, and thank you for watching.